you will probably, in fact, not probably, definitely not find a conservative New Orleanian in the media who has been nicer or more complimentary through the years to Mitch Landrieu than I. You would not think that I would have been so complimentary because he's a liberal and I'm a conservative, but I have been. So this is not just some random right-wing response. When I say that how Mitch Landrieu has handled the monument situation, and I want you to quote me, makes him lower than cow dung.
Lower than cow dung. Okay.
Yes. He has introduced racial and other discord into a city that was healing. He has ginned up racial feelings for his own, probably his own national purposes, dreaming of being president of the United States. He has not done it in any way that could facilitate understanding or reconciliation, but he's done it as a bully. He ginned it up on his own. There wasn't a big public outcry about these monuments, but he saw what had happened in South Carolina, and he decided this was a way to make some national news. And by removing very respected, just in terms of artistically respected monuments of history, without making distinctions among them, he has shown himself to be a despoiler of history, a despoiler of heritage, and a despoiler of art. And my problem is not with, wanting to honor the Confederacy or anything. I don't really care about the so-called lost cause. I'm not going to defend Jefferson Davis being in New Orleans or the Liberty Place Monument, but the statues of Beauregard and of Lee, on their own merits, should have stayed. There is no reason to take them down, and in fact, every good reason, which I will outline, and I will let you talk in a minute, but I will outline, if you want, every good reason to leave up Lee and to have left up Beauregard. I know they basically took down Beauregard last night, and it's a travesty of justice and a travesty of decency, and Mitch Landrieu should be ashamed.
Okay, lower than cow dung. That's pretty inflammatory. But it deals with your emotions.
Exactly. And
it deals with your emotions, though, and your emotions are not unlike the emotions of so many other people. And you don't have to be conservative, to have those emotions. There are people who feel this way who are, lovers of history, who feel like this was not an issue at all until Mitch Landrieu raised the issue. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. And it really was not an issue until he made it one. And again, the problem is if he wants to make some sort of moral point, he can do that, but he needs to be careful and accurate and precise. And if he wants to say that he wants to heal the community, then he should actually pay attention to what P.G.T, Beauregard, and Robert E. Lee did to reconcile the wounds of the nation after the war, and especially Beauregard, who is a Louisiana native, who grew up in New Orleans, who was a leading citizen of New Orleans, doing wonderful things for the city both before and after the war, and who put himself on the line, not just for reconciliation between the states, but for racial reconciliation. He fought for civil rights. He argued for integration of schools. He for integration of public places, and was a leading citizen for black civil rights after the war. That's a lesson you can teach. That's a better lesson than saying, oh, we're going to destroy this iconic piece of New Orleans architecture or sculpture in order to try to position the mayor for a presidential race.
Interesting. I didn't know that about Beauregard until recently. And in fact, I didn't know that he was a Creole. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was born in the what's now known as the Cajun parishes, but yeah, he was an old French Creole, of very much of French blood, hence the name Beauregard, by the way. He wasn't actually born in New Orleans. I think it was either Saint Ascension or one of those, but grew up and went to school in New Orleans. He was a leading engineer, did a lot of things that helped, civil defense and physical defense of the city from ravages of floods and other things before the war. After the war, he came back. He led the railroad, and he basically invented New Orleans' famous streetcar system. And that's all, even without talking about what he did for racial reconciliation.
Now, what's going on here is also going on nationally. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of Confederate monuments being taken down, and my argument is not that every monument should stay up, and not that somehow we should go overboard in still somehow honoring the Confederacy. My point is that you should take each one on its own merits, on its own historical merits, and see what can best be done to learn from and to use it as a way to honor what is best while not honoring what is not honorable. In the case of some of these, statues, if they're honoring somebody, if there were a statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest, of course you take it down. I mean, the guy founded the Klan, okay? But that's different. Beauregard was a leading citizen of the city of New Orleans itself, who did a lot for the city itself, and as I repeat, he fought for racial reconciliation, argued for civil rights for blacks, and argued for integration in the 1870s when it did him no public good, argued for integration of public spaces and of schools. He should be honored.
My position on it has been, pardon me, that all monuments, even the Liberty Monument for that matter, should stay up. And the reason why is it can, even though it's being honored for a purpose that I personally do not agree with and that I believe is repugnant to everything I stand for, but I think with today's technology, you can put up like QR codes on the base of the monument and make it a history lesson, so that people can understand, okay, what happened. You can't destroy history. You can never destroy history, and you shouldn't destroy history. And so this would be a way to educate those who really have no idea what happened and should know what happened. Your thoughts?
I 90% agree with you.
Sure.
Look, if you have a statue of a Lenin or a Saddam Hussein, you take it down. They were mass murderers, butchers, etc., etc. So not everything that stands should always stand. But if there is a way to make something good out of something that has long been there, the presumption should be in the direction that you said. The presumption should be that things long established as public monuments should stay, but should maybe be better used for history by a better plaque, by a plaque that that promotes reconciliation or something like that. That should be the presumption. I'm just saying I wouldn't go all the way to saying it's a totally irrebuttable presumption because, again, I cheered when Saddam Hussein came down. I cheered when Lenin came down. That's why you make distinctions, though, and that's what Mitch Landrieu did not do. He made no distinctions among these four monuments. He's just using it to get national attention, and it's despicable.
Okay, we have some comments here. Johnny March, he says, I knew that when I took Louisiana history in the 8th grade, and I think he's referring to this being a folly. Percy Marchand says, actually, the city council voted on it. Our representatives that followed the process, the system, the same one most of you defend when a fearful white man gets off for killing an unnamed black man. I was asked yesterday by Jeff Carrera on his radio talk show about, whether the state should get involved. And keep in mind, this is going on nationally, so the issue becomes some are asking the feds to getting involved in what the city or what the states do. My feeling is the states should not get involved. The feds should not get involved. These are local issues. Your thought?
I do agree with that. Most of the time, these are local issues, and sometimes localities can screw up. The New Orleans City Council completely and utterly screwed up here. Again, they're not listening to the other side. They're not considering the other side. They're letting power go to their heads, and that serves nobody's purpose. Go on. You're about to say something.
It's fine. So those who are watching, you'll see there's a telephone number with the meeting ID at the very bottom. Please call that number, U.S. toll-free number, and just type in the meeting ID, and we'll be able to chat with you. Also, at the very bottom, you see Jeff Carrera's book, America's Last Chance. It's Jeff's first book, and please go ahead and pick it up. Go to jeffcarrera.com. So, any last comments at all regarding what's going on here in New Orleans and nationally in terms of these monuments? Any last comments?
I don't want to talk nationally. I don't want to talk nationally about the monuments. I care about the New Orleans monuments. 3 of them are gone, including one that should not be gone. That's a Beauregard. The last, the most iconic of Lee, is going to go soon. Somebody, somehow, should get to Mitch Landrieu and to the city council and say, stop this idiocy. Do something better. Work for reconciliation. Stop being a bully. Leave Lee up and consider putting Beauregard back in his place.
Okay, let's see. We have a comment from a friend of mine in Orlando, Terry Jacobson. We should not be erasing our history like it never happened. Instead, we should be focusing on how these events led up to a needed change to make our country a better place to live in.
Bingo.
Yeah, share that feeling. What do you think about people waving Confederate flags though at these events? Do you think that's? I mean, I've argued that is that's similar to a Black Panther, raising his fist. Your feelings about that?
I think it's counterproductive. I think the more they make it about the cause of the Confederacy, the more that they play into the hands of those who want to despoil history and to take down the monuments. The reason that we should keep Beauregard up is not because he was a Civil War general. It is because of all the other things he did for the good as a leading citizen of the city of New Orleans. And I happen to think it's a shame that the Confederate flag was turned into a system of, into a symbol of white supremacy. Unfortunately, that is how it is now seen, largely because the idiot, awful, horrendous, hateful white supremacists have made it so. But that today is what the symbol means to most people. And so waving it at these monuments is at least as bad as what Mitch Landrieu is doing by taking the monuments down.
Really interesting issue. I mean, definitely. And obviously, let me just say this. I think a lot of people feel that the monuments should be taken down. Reason being that it reminds them of, say what happened to their friends, family. And keep in mind, I mean, when you and I were first growing up, basically, there were a lot of reminders of Jim Crow. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I was I didn't. The first African American person I talked to, other than the lady who was actually, I guess I quote maid, was when I was 18 years old. Talked to an African American person.
Mine wasn't quite that restricted, but yeah, look, slavery, obviously, it goes beyond saying, was a horrendously despicable evil. So is Jim Crow. The civil rights movement of the 60s, might have had 10% of it was excesses, but 90% of it was absolutely moral, absolutely necessary. White supremacy is a disgusting idea. Government enforced segregation was just hideous. What black Americans went through was inexcusable. I mean, I'm a guy who was a leader fighting against David Duke and got my share of death threats for it. So, I take a back seat to nobody in denouncing some of this racism stuff.
Sure.
Look, I'd have less problem changing the street name Jefferson Davis Parkway than I would with taking down the monument of Beauregard. There's something to do with public art. Street names get changed all the time, but there's something different about something that is public art, and especially when it's of somebody who you can honor for other reasons. Mm-hmm. And you can't put a plaque on a street sign on every block that explains who Jefferson Davis was for Jefferson Davis Parkway. You can put a big plaque at the base of the Lee statue and of the Beauregard statue and explain why they're there. So you can do that, and you can make it a way to teach history and teach reconciliation. That's what I'm arguing for.
Sure. Thank you. The QR codes, basically, you've seen those codes. Basically, what you do is you take your phone, your tablet, whatever, you click on the code, okay, and then suddenly all the information related to the subject comes on, and you can review it at your own leisure. Great.
That's a great idea too.
Great. It's one of the things I've argued for relative to this issue.